Hello and welcome to Wait, It Gets Better, the improvisational storytelling podcast, where every week a few friends get together, like good friends do, and we discuss stories. I'm, of course, Levi.
I'm Reed.
No Seth today. He is too busy saving the world.
I have him written down here. He's on a foreign mission.
Yep, he is walking the marble halls of a different country. No, he's not in the armed forces. He's just not here. We are going to pick up where we left off. The name of this story is Those Who Tread the Marble Halls. And I'm going to give a little bit of a overarching idea about where we are and how it is. We just did our first kind of world building episode last week. So there's not a ton of plot, but there's a lot of setting. So the genre is kind of a political intrigue, the political maneuverings of the those in power. Wheel of Time, the book by Robert Jordan, calls it Deus de Mar, the game of houses. And it's kind of this posturing and maneuvering. So what we have is we have a world that's kind of rising out of a world war or a catastrophe, something like that. And there are a lot of fractured small city-states. There are a lot of larger countries. There's kind of three large countries. It's kind of like World War II era technology. So like the beginnings of radio, the beginnings of flight are starting to kind of happen. But it's a lot of conflict and posturing in this kind of world rising out. Did I say that correctly, Reed, would you say?
Yeah, I was thinking, just maybe a little advanced of World War II World War II.
Oh, World
technology.
War II. Okay.
Yeah,
I was thinking World War I, but that's fine.
Yeah, I had beginning scene, and I placed that beginning scene in what I was picturing as kind of a Cold War. If it was on Earth, it would have been like a Cold War era setting.
Gotcha. Right. I remember that now. I mean, I was thinking World War I from something else. So Reed's beginning scene was a group of kind of not hastily gathered, but kind of forgotten soldiers, kind of the older, the less technologically advanced, but kind of like a mismatch of a lot of different people groups, kind of all put together in a full company. And so they have like the full complement of armor and artillery and ammo, and they were kind of forgotten. They were told to move to a place, to take a town, because some intersecting so the enemies were coming, and they were like, well, we're just going to hold off here. And then no, they were told to meet up with people at a town, and they got to the town and those people weren't there. And so they kind of set up to protect this town from other forces that were coming in, and they were kind of uniquely suited to do that because of their kind of because they were forgotten. People forgot that they had as much ammo and artillery that they did. So it was kind of the unique groundwork for one of these city-states that later is now participating. They've finally grown up enough to participate now in the great game. Right. The great political maneuvering game that happens in the marble halls, they're called. A giant superstructure protected from all attack, where nobility, politicians, schemers, lobbyists, tradespeople all come to participate in graduated games, maneuvering. You know, some people are there as liaisons for their country. Some people are there as liaisons for manufacturing. Some people are there as liaisons for their private military. Some people are there to just make people breakfast. You know, it's like a whole system has built up, and now it's kind of like this city, kind of like the UN, but more like a fortress city that is supposed to be a relic of ages long past and a foundation for the future, is how it's kind of portrayed. And there's three sort of large countries, you know, that are the big movers. But then one down from that, there's, smaller countries, and then there's city states, and then, there's a lot of intrigue, like who gets to go to this wing to talk to this person. And everyone's kind of goal is to ingratiate themselves to one of the three super factions, the super countries. And if they can do that, then they'll survive, right? We find out that one of the reasons why this sort of company in Reed's beginning scene was so important and why they were set up so well is because the country that they belonged to was dissolved in the time it took them to make the 50-mile march or whatever from one place to the next. And so they were kind of forgotten. So they're kind of uniquely positioned. And our hero comes out of that country. He is the first emissary going to the first 10 floors of the marble halls to try and form alliances, try and not get his throat slit, not have poison put in his food, trying to make trade deals. So it's all this sort of political intrigue, as well as some hidden agenda. There's always hidden agendas. The hidden agendas are a mile thick, but there's always kind of a hidden agenda that people have that exist, and whether he finds out about them, I don't know. I guess we'll find out about it this episode and the next episode. Did I do a fair and accurate representation, Reed?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Great. What story element did you have for this week?
I have Ka-tet members.
Oh, great. So that's like the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. Ka-tet members are Ka being fate or destiny, tet being a group of people, most of the time three, but sometimes more. So Ka-tet, a group of people brought together by fate.
Cool.
I have hero's sidekick, and I'd like to go first because I think it would kind of help set up the hero, because no one chose hero. I mean, no one got hero as their story element. We just kind of made the hero, and I think we could give him some bones if I talked about his sidekick. Would that work, Reed?
Cool.
All right. So our hero's sidekick, his real name is kind of lost to time. He came from this village, this town, now a city state. He goes by R.J. Wilkins, and Wilkins is like a super general name in this city. There are thousands of people with the last name Wilkins. If people ask him what does R.J. stand for, he goes, huh? He doesn't recognize the fact that if it was him, he introduced himself as Wilkins. If people know that the first two initials of his name is RJ, then he marks them down in his little black book for investigation. He is the hero. He is the hero's spy master, or central intelligence guy, or wet works guy, or risk assessment. Is that risk? No, risk management department. He is the intelligence, the intelligence head and the main intelligence operative for this city state's, which I'm going to name the city state right now, Wilkins. So his last name is Wilkins because to him, he is the state. And he is a very bad man. He came to Wilkins years after it the initial company came and kind of set up law and order and started to make things right. He came as a defector from another larger city state, and he was already well versed in subversive and propaganda tactics. So he understands how to take someone off the street without arousing suspicion from anyone else. He knows how the concepts of propaganda, how to rile people up, how to settle people down. He heads the secret police, and his firm belief is, since he is the state, Wilkins is his last name, and the country is named Wilkins, then he essentially treats it like his family. So he doesn't say, Good evening, citizen. He calls everyone brother and sister, and mother and father, and aunt and uncle, like everyone, or son or cousin, right? He's a slimy guy, 6'2", average build size, always wears kind of a longer coat to hide the fact that he's always armed. He and it's like, wow, this is kind of a slimy dude. This is the hero's sidekick. The reality is that he was ready and willing to come to Wilkins when he initially came, and to get in with the intelligence systems that he understood, to throw the country over and then start bidding out the state to neighboring countries, right? So he was basically like, a chop shop. You like steal a car and you bring it in and they like cut it apart and sell it for parts and stuff. That's what he was planning on doing to this country. That's why he was kicked out of his last countries, because he was caught. But it wasn't like that country was the first time. He was caught because he had done that same thing to a country beforehand. Mm-hmm. And then to this country that he was then tried to do it to them. And then they were like, wait a second, you're setting us up for the same thing, and kicked him out. So he sets himself up in this place, and he is, I'd say, about 10 or 20 years older than our hero. And he trained the hero as as basically an operative, a secret police, a spy, a saboteur, just kind of a all around skulky boy. However, the hero couldn't do the things that RJ asked him to. He did them at first, but when it came time to show your dedication to Wilkins and kill the lowest ranking student in the spy school, I don't know what you call it, right? Or ferret out, plant evidence on one of your classmates and get them arrested, he couldn't do it. And it was like this kind of battle. It was this irritating battle, as the genuine authenticity of the hero, who grew up in Wilkins, who was born in Wilkins just a mere 10 years after the company came. It frustrated him and it irritated him, but not because he was so set in his ways, but because it reminded him of himself before he strayed from the path into the dark woods, as it will.
Of corruption.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it came to a moment where, the hero was walking in down a street, and RJ was there with a pistol and was ready. He was like, I just have to kill him, because what's happening is his pursuit of justice and righteousness, it's starting to shine light onto my ick, right? It's starting to remind me about what it is we actually are supposed to be doing here. And it broke him. He's alluded to it to the hero in the past, but the hero doesn't know how close he was to death.
That's really interesting.
So RJ basically made a complete and total turnaround at that point in actions. No, not in actions, in moral compass. However, he did not do it in actions. And it's a constant source of contention with the hero and RJ, because RJ's like, just let me get the information you need from this guy. Give me, a pound of salt, two Dr. Peppers, and a car battery, and I will get the information you need from him. And the hero won't let him do it. And so slowly, RJ, his life is being redeemed by basically being like, I owe the hero such a great debt for saving me, mm-hmm. that I can't help but kind of redeem my ways slowly. So he is aptly suited to be the hero's butler, to be the hero's coachman, to be the hero's assistant coming into the marble halls, because right away he walks in and he starts, parsing out not just escape routes, not just clear avenues of fire, not just the propaganda, not just the music being pumped through the sound system, not just the food, not just that stuff, but, you know, how does this person look at that person? How does this person talk to this person? Oh, I see the people in the gray livery don't bow to the soldiers, but they bow to the officials. That means something. I got to figure out, you know, so he's a huge resource to the hero, because the hero understands the game.
Yeah.
Right. He understands that there is a game. It's like, you can understand how chess works. You know, you can say, well, this is what every single thing does, without actually understanding how to play chess, how to feint an opponent, how to build a trap, how to do all these things. And so that is what RJ does.
Cool.
But the thing is he gets information for the hero. And I'd say that sometimes that information is so private that when the hero shares it, it in fact causes more of a problem, because it's like, no one knew that except my bedroom servants. How did you find out that information? And the hero is just like, doggone it, RJ. You could have told me that this was like really precious information and not like just information I could use to manipulate someone with. Yeah. And so the hero is kind of, what I imagine is the hero's last name is also Wilkins. Anytime anyone takes an official office, their last name becomes Wilkins. That's like a indicator. Not that they're part of the royal family, but that they're like owned by the state, that they're like, you know, servants of the state. Mm-hmm. So that's the hero's sidekick. So he is available to do whatever.
It's funny. I'm just really enjoying this character. I am currently reading a spy novel. And there's a bad guy in the spy novel who like is a slick kind of a Cuban. And he seduces the widowed secretary of the FBI.
Ooh.
And he is very smooth, never presses her. He's a foreign guy with businesses, and he couldn't care less of the little intrigues. But he just needs to know, you know, the one thing he said, well, let me know when he's going on this, you know, on this trip. And she said, I can't say that. I said, well, I will need to know when to be in town so that you'll be free that weekend. So we can get together, right? You know, so the one time she slips and she lets him know that this is happening so that he can make plans. It's like the people that he works for uses the information and has the FBI, head of the FBI assassinated. And like, there's literally, you could count on the 5 fingers of one hand who was privy to this thing. And so here he spent, you know, all this energy to develop what could have been one of the greatest intel sources, and his stupid bosses blew it all in one shot because they
wanted to kill the FBI guy.
Yeah, because they had a personal grudge, and it served no purpose except to make America really, really mad.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, I was just enjoying that.
Yeah, and so he's a guy, and he has like these connections, you know, and he's running from his own things, you know. But what we see is we see an access because our hero is not allowed to go into the servants' quarters in the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth basements. Mm-hmm. Right, he's not allowed, but his butler is, and so my idea is that there's interconnected things that begin to happen between the two.
Yeah,
you know. So I want to come up with a name for our hero. My thought is Anthony.
Okay.
Did you have one?
Well, I have Ka-tet, and I had one of my Ka-tet members I thought was a possible hero.
Oh, let's hear it.
But it's not. We'll see. I'll just throw out where I was coming.
Yeah, let's hear it. That's good.
You know, the opening scene, what I envisioned was like a NATO style. This is what I envisioned as the scenario, is like, imagine a post World War II standoff between two super parties and their allies, a la NATO and Warsaw.
One called Pomerica and the other called Lussia.
Yeah, something like that. So, but what happens is, imagine like late 80s, Lussia is crumbling economically from the inside, and they've got this enormous war machine put together, and there are hardliners that realize that the wheels are coming off, and we're going to be left with this incredible war machine, all dressed up and no place to go. And there's like part of, we've trained our entire lives for the great moment when we would have to save the motherland, and it doesn't look like it's even going to happen. And so a circumstance, they manufacture this thing, Warsaw Pact mobilizes Operation Collapse NATO, goes into effect. The whole shebang goes on. It just so happens that the river town of Wilkins is a choke point and a communication nexus. And like you say, imagine NATO, trying to hold off until they can get reinforcements from America and all this. And Pomerica. And of course, the reserves are called up, but you've got the deep reserves.
It's not NATO, it's Beto.
Yeah, you got the deep reserves that are like the old dudes that still train. They still do weekend warrior and summer camp, and they keep maintaining their, but they're kind of, like you say, kind of forgotten. They're certainly like third tier, like last ditch resort, and they would have in the war plans, the last war plans that were written up, they would have like, administrative duties and like holding this communication nexus and facilitate the free flow of supplies moving through, and set up a war vehicle machine shops and restoration, kind of a
rehabilitation,
right.
Stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
And so when the call goes out, they go to these hidden bunkers where they've got all their machinery stored, and the part of the country where they would always do their training is kind of rough country and not very heavily populated. It's kind of hill country, and as they walk, so then they mobilize, carry out their plans. Their communications have been destroyed, maybe EMP, I don't know. But anyway, so they're just, all we can do is, they're out of touch. All we can do is follow the rules of the last orders that we were given, which were actually pre-planned orders that were in the books from years ago. And the opening scene was they're just cresting the ridge overlooking the town of Wilkins, and they realize that it's already been overrun by the enemy. And the whatever fighting may or may not still be going on.
Yeah.
And they've got, and so what they did is they just swooped in, take the town, destroy all the enemy equipment, set up roadblocks and ambushes. So any supplies coming down the railroad and down the roads, they just devastate them. So whatever troops are behind them, they're just being starved of material and fuel and ammunition. And then, of course, as things collapse and into a no real winner, no real victory, just kind of obliteration. And the war machine at those times were calculated on just profligate expenditure of weapons, of munitions. Fire off your missiles, blow up the enemy tanks. And the thing is, you got to keep that coming. And when it stops coming, you got guys, like I say, all dressed up and no place to go, the ones that survive. And
all
then
of a sudden, war stops, not necessarily because one side has been defeated, but because everybody is
just mutual exhaustion.
Yeah, mutual assured exhaustion.
Yeah, and so you've got Colonel Malcolm, who has got his band of guys have been training together for 20 years. They're in their 40s, and he restores order, and so House Wilkins. Colonel Malcolm Wilkins, House Wilkins is established. And my Ka-tet members has 3 members. One of them is a somewhat older guy. He's his name is Oxford, and he's a singer, entertainer, gambler, ladies' man, kind of in his late 40s. He's kind of a master of a number of mysterious, he's got a mysterious background. However, the kind of his secret thing is he's had his eye on Wilkins, RJ, and he's kind of followed him there maybe 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
And he is a guy that understands what happens in the marble halls. He's a guy that ingratiates himself quickly into court life, and he becomes fast friends with someone he calls the lad, 21-year-old heir to Malcolm House, descended from the famous Colonel Malcolm Wilkins, the heroic commander of the reservists who made their stand there.
Yeah.
He's raised in court language, the ways of talking, the slang, you can have a whole conversation with the raise of an eyebrow in the game of houses by his mother, Lady Lucretia, and his two older sisters. And he becomes fast friends with Oxford. So here's two members of the Ka-tet, and Oxford never wastes any opportunity to kind of strengthen and bolster and encourage Lex, the lad, he calls him, the lad's tendency toward honor and nobility and righteousness, so to speak. He's they're fast friends and they trust each other, and he's just taken a shining to the lad. The third member, her name's Cherie. She's just 19. And she's the orphan daughter of the deadliest pair of assassins I called it in the Nine Lands. And
Okay.
they're like, anyway, she comes kind of trying to find her place in the world, but she's been trained, and she immediately catches the attention, of course, of RJ. But she is also a lady with a heart as big as Lusha, should I say? She's a great lady, and she is, but she knows her way around. Malcolm.
So wait, trained by assassins, or is she an assassin herself?
She has the skills. She never was introduced into the guild, so to speak, by her parents.
Okay. Because, how can someone be trained as an assassin? Like, if you were trained as an assassin, that would also mean psychological conditioning to value money or the mission over. So has that happened? Or does she just have the physical killing skills, but she's never been brainwashed to believe that she should follow the orders?
She's been exposed to some of that.
Gotcha. Okay.
And yeah,
maybe why she left and was trying to find her place in the world.
Well,
okay.
but orphaned, her parents are dead.
Right.
Yeah, and she is only 19, but she is kind of picked up upon as sort of a fledgling, shall we say, apprentice type, both by Oxford and by RJ.
Right.
And Lexington, heir of Wilkins House, he likes her. And they kind of connected. So, but those three I see as the Ka-tet. There's very clearly, to me, I saw as you were talking about RJ, because part of his lexicon is he also, I wanted to make clear that he had learned the soldier's language too. He had been raised up at court, and so he knows the house battle language, which is, they have literally a whole lexicon of communication with just hand signals and facial gestures and and plus they're secret. They've got codes, you know.
Right. Which is all things that he needs or will need.
Right.
Cool. That sounds good. So we have Oxford, Lexington, and
Cherie.
Gotcha. Well, do we have an idea about the plot? Like, why are they coming now? Is it just the size? Wilkins has finally grown to a size. I think it's grown past its city-state status, right? Which is you have the main central city, and then you control 100 miles in every directions.
Yeah.
Right? And they could be like bursting at the seams, and so they need to start forming negotiations with other city-states. Or it could be that one of their borders, which is a really lucky thing, which is why they got the invitation to the Marble Halls, borders one of the 3 giant superpowers.
Yeah.
You know, by just it could be a very small amount. But by decree and law and tradition, that superpower isn't allowed to just suck them up. Isn't allowed to just, it could be that after this great war that happened, that is when the edicts of the Marble Halls were declared. Right?
Yeah.
Where they kind of signed it in blood. They kind of said, the world has gotten so bad. We've been through so much. There has to be some order to this. And, all order, given enough time, will degrade into chaos if not maintained. Things do not settle up.
Yeah.
They settle down. They break apart. They disintegrate. So, and one of the things I wanted to say about RJ is he is kind of fiercely loyal to Wilkins, not just Lexington. He's fiercely loyal to Wilkins. And so, there are factions in America, like, let's just pick one out, the CIA. I'll pick one out of the air, the CIA, who've been accused of doing a lot of bad things, right? Like assassinating U.S. presidents and selling cocaine in order to start wars, in order to supply money to, right? There's like all of these, there's a lot of claims of what the CIA has done. And the CIA in and of itself is like a compartmentalized system. And there's a lot of people working in the CIA, I'm making air quotes with my hand, who are fiercely loyal to the country and are fiercely loyal to the mission and are fiercely loyal to themselves and are fiercely loyal to power. Those are all different people who've all been given power to accomplish things that they feel are important.
Yeah.
And not all of those line up with what everybody would consider morally acceptable.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
But
I'm old enough to remember the Senator Frank Church and the church committee oversight hearings where they were, okay, we got to rein these boys in. I think that was, I don't know, was it the 70s?
And the CIA said, rein who in? Rein what in? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that RJ is, one of his failings still, is that he's fiercely loyal to accomplishing the mission as he sees it. Right? So if Lexington comes up against somebody and is enemies with them and then meets them and has an honest conversation and changes his mind, RJ will be less likely to be like, oh, okay, sounds good. I'll stop all of my 10 or 13 plots to discredit them and stop their food supply so that I can put weevils into their food supply and add a certain thing to their foods that makes them sick so that they're unable to work well. I'm not going to kill them. I'm just going to do all these things. He's not going to stop doing that because his, the sort of like blinders on a horse, he kind of gets one track minded. And so he could end up turning bad. Not bad, but just rogue by the end of the story.
Yeah.
Because he's been doing things a certain way his entire life, and he recognizes the difference in Lexington, but he's not quite sure if that difference can rectify with who he is.
Yeah.
You know, that's just an aspect to it I wanted to put in. And then as far as the plot goes, I mean, there is going to be something needs to be accomplished, right? Is it make peace with the bordering city states? Is it something with the is it a plot, like a nefarious plot to uncover? Like he's bordered with one of the superpowers and they witness something, the transport of some goods. Maybe they witness he has evidence that witnesses slavery happening, like slaves being exchanged with people with trucks marked as the superpower or city states. And so he's kind of bringing this up, and he's got this ace in his pocket. But if he were to just walk into the marble halls the first day and say, I saw the superpower with slaves, he would be kindly escorted to a small room and he would never leave. And everyone would pretend, what, Wilkins? What are you talking about? Wilkins? I don't know what you're talking about. So there's something he witnessed. It could be a genocide, like a killing of a whole small village that they witness. And so they're finally coming up to the big stage, and their purpose is, we want to negotiate peace. But what they're also there to do is to kind of root out the problem, find where the problem is. How deep does it go? You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's kind of it. So it's twofold why they're going there, which is one of the reasons why Oxford and I don't remember the girl's name again. Cherie and RJ are all going to be there, is because this isn't just this is Wilkins's first kind of larger diplomatic foray. I can't say the word. But it's also because they've got like 2 missions,
Mm-hmm.
And RJ's kind of focused on the second mission because he's kind of the subterfuge guy.
Right.
But my thought is that there will be several different city-states, right, that are kind of close, that Wilkins has had dealings with in the past. And so there's like 2 allies, an enemy, and 3, we were enemies, but we're kind of allies now. We had some skirmishes, but we're not fighting right now. And so he has like a social circle of people that he knows about, who he knows their names, he knows their faces. And so it starts there, but then intrigue comes when, an ambassador for one of the superpowers shows up at a party. And then all of a sudden there's some talk about what's happening and, where things are going and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
And there's always the rumor of war. It's the same thing I imagine, like because this story is kind of very dystopian in a way, but there's also rumors of war, like in 1984, where it's like, we're always at war with Europa. We're always at war with Europa. And then now we're at war with Asia. Now we're at war with Asia,
Yeah.
And it would they're always at war. So one of the ways that the 3 superpowers maintain power is by constantly being in an armistice with each other.
Yeah.
They don't need to trade with each other. They're totally self-sufficient, but they're constantly at an armistice. But it's kind of like an agreed upon armistice because the marble halls, because of peace and prosperity. But really, they keep everyone underneath them constantly afraid and trying to maneuver because of this implied armistice that exists. That might not actually exist, but we don't know, because this isn't going to be from the perspective of one of those superpowers. This is from the perspective of a city-state that's 200 miles in diameter.
Right.
So, any other interesting plot points you want to add in, Reed, as we wrap this episode up?
Yeah, I just kind of as a throwaway, I just talked about her Cherie's parents were the daughter of the deadliest pair of assassins in the 9 lands. I imagine these are like 9 of these smaller city-state kind of things, and they call them the 9 lands. They're not under the thumb of any of the 3 big superpowers, but they almost operate as an entity unto themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I could see that the neighboring superpowers would like to constantly kind of weasel their way in, ingratiate themselves, just from the standpoint of security, making sure that they're not in the bag for their big superpower enemy / competitors, so much as wanting, not wanting to absorb them or dominate them, but they just want them to keep them as kind of a buffer.
Right.
And in the meantime, the 9 lands, they have intrigue between each other, and they're kind of vying and jockeying for position. And
right.
Yeah.
There's the first 3 floors of the marble halls.
Yeah.
Some say it's a spire 100 floors tall. It certainly reaches all the way up to the, my thought that it's kind of like a space elevator, like left over from a forgotten age.
Yeah.
So it's like you go to it, and it just goes off into the heavens,
Oh, cool.
And so you go to like the first couple floors, but the perspective is always, there's a giant game above me and there's a giant game below me. I'm lost in this place. Like the marble halls are built to give a sense that everything is bigger and more intimidating than what you thought it was. So
yeah, cool.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Wait It Gets Better. If you would like to ask us a question about this episode, send me an email at waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com. I check them every day. If you want to just message us on Twitter, you can message us at @getsbettercast. We're happy to answer questions, take suggestions, hear constructive criticism. We love hearing about it. And until next time, don't forget to wait, because it gets better.